To kick things off, I want to talk about one of our favorite topics, the topic of leadership, Ed. Arguably one of the things that we need to be focused on most as owners of our firm and leaders of our firm, but kind of opening the conversation up around specifically what critical policies we need to instill into our firm to create a better leadership culture and to instill leadership into the business. So before we get to some of the specific policies that we wanted to talk about today, Ed, I want to start with you and get some general observations in a second.
Thanks, Brenton. Yeah, so leadership is quite a sort of a term that people use, but what does it actually mean? What is it, and how do you apply it, and how do you get it? Why are some people leaders and other people followers? It's so important that you can have the best systems in the world, you can have the best people around you in the world, and if you don't lead them and you don't show strong leadership, then the whole thing falls apart. Whether it's mum and dad is the leader of the family, whether it's the church community, whether it's company, the CEO of a company, whether it's the leader in your playgroup or whatever, or the leader of a country.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have strong leadership, everything falls apart. And we talk about this in Wize, that we want the business to be run from bottom up, not from top down. And what's important in getting it running from bottom up and not top down is that every single person in the organisation is a leader, and to show leadership in their respective areas. And Jamie will talk about this a bit later on about, leading yourself and then leading others. However, just from a very broad, from a high level point of view, it is about everybody in the organisation doing the right thing, taking responsibility, not just for themselves, but for everything around them. And often you can see the followers from the leaders. The followers say things like, it's quicker if I just do this myself. They'll say things like, by the time I've trained someone else, I could have just done it myself. And often they're more interested in, being right rather than having the right results. The leader, on the other hand, is someone who's focused on outcomes. She's not focused on their own ego or being right. They're focused on the right outcome for the organisation, for the people that they're leading. They're always not taking any credit for themselves, but they're trying to prop up other people, make them be the best that they can, get the best outcome from the people that they're leading. And you can see these people because they're selfless and they don't talk about themselves, they just talk about their team, how good their team is. And their whole agenda is to get the best out of the people around them. And you can see where a person working for manager A, or he's working for manager B, he or she seems to work better under one manager than the other manager, and it's the same person, but under different leadership, they perform differently. So
Okay.
just to start us all off, that's my interpretation of leadership.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think an important thing to note there is the journey of it. So I'm assuming that you're a different leader to when you first started your business, Ed. Now you've had a good in terms of timeline of experience, but you also invested heavily in becoming that leader that your business needed you to be in order to grow. So can you talk to us a little bit about your personal journey of investing in your own leadership?
Yes, absolutely. Initially, all of us grow up, if you like, inverted commas, by starting off by being a follower. You've got people that are leading you and you do the work, and you're focused on getting the work out, doing the work. And your mindset is around, that, getting,
Mm-hmm.
getting control of the work, getting the quality out and so forth. But then as you start to hire people, I had to evolve my skills from doing the work to actually managing the people around me, because where you get the most leverage and return on investment is to people that are working around you to be the best they can and to produce the most they can, and to keep the good people with you, because often people leave. They don't leave firms, they leave their managers. And unless you develop those skills of leading people and managing people, if you get a lot of churn in your organization, it's a huge, huge cost to your organization. So that changed your focus. And where I am today, there's about 160 staff, but where I am today is I'm just constantly looking for really good people and training them and inspiring them and getting the best out of them so that they can be the best that they can be. And my role is obviously, Jamie will tell you the same.
Yeah.
He's will change. His role is changing over time. And for the people who are listening today, whether you're a client manager or you own the business, if you want to scale your business and you want your business to be successful, you have to develop leadership skills.
Okay. It's a great point. It's good to bring you in here, Jamie, because leadership is, I know, one of the topics that you're very close to and you're very passionate about, because it's been a journey for yourself as well, since working with Ed and also the other coaching experiences you've had over the last decade in building Sky. Talk to us a little bit about your leadership journey in terms of what importance you placed on it at the start of growing Sky and starting your business, and what importance you place on it now.
Yeah, look, when I started out, it was all sort of just, I guess, a focus around getting the business launched and getting started. And, like everyone, and the same as Ed, I just went flat chat, doing the work in that production area, and really got to the classic point of about 600K to $1 million in fees. And that's where a transformation has to take place at around about those two sort of barriers. And that transformation is what I sort of call from being client fanatical and then moving across to being team fanatical. And I think, as Ed's mentioned before, 80% of businesses go broke in the first 5 years, and, other stats we've all heard that only 4% of businesses worldwide turn more than $1 million. So the question then is why? So there's these barriers there, and one of the biggest barrier to the firm owner is obviously this leadership aspect, and then having the knowledge and then having the strategy to know how to scale that. And that knowledge and strategy is all, tied up in the leader. The leader has to transform from doing the work to managing people. And that was the journey that I went on, was to stop doing the work and then to managing people, because we're in the financial and taxation and bookkeeping industry. But from where I sit, I'm in the people business. So if you want to scale your firm, then you have to be able to learn how to articulate leadership skills, and not importantly just the what, but how you go about it as well. And then once you articulate those skills and become the leader, become the manager, then you can continue on that journey. But those skills must be learned, and you can learn them.
Was there any particular part of that journey and that transition and developing those skills that you found quite difficult, or that you sort of really grappled with yourself in order to overcome?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And Ed sort of, as my mentor, helped me recognize that, and which I know, I would often say to Ed, how can I be better, Ed? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And, I think I was okay at leading myself. I was motivated and sort of tried to have the private victory. I was a very friendly sort of person with all the team and that crew, but I felt let down on myself that we weren't getting the results, the KPIs that we needed. And, Ed said to me one day, well, Jamie, it's okay to be friends with everyone, but you've got to go up a level above that so that, people are productive and you get the results you need. And so you sort of get these three areas. If you're weak in one area, you have to work on that one particular weakness as a leader. We'll talk a bit about more of that in the next slide as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, anything to add to those comments? Were there any particular barriers in terms of developing those leadership skills that you notice working with firms that they really struggle with, that they're coming back to you, trying to get feedback on how to overcome more often than not?
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to explain that in a way I can explain it from my own point of view, it requires a lot of patience, because I'm impatient, and
Aren't we all?
Like it's really clear to me. Just do it this way, and the results there. But often people can't see what you can see, and be patient. And just on a point, what Jamie was saying earlier about friendship, as a leader, you've got to make some tough decisions. And I remember saying that exact thing to Jamie, is that if you get too close to friendly, there's got to be a line. Then you can't be objective with your decision-making process, because you've got to look at the welfare of the company first, or the business first, ahead of the individual. And because if you can't separate the two, then it'll be very hard for you to make those kind of decisions that requires, some hard conversations with some people to move some people on. When you become too friendly with them, then the lines are blurred and the company suffers for it. And the company represents everybody, and it's not just one. So the majority has to come first, and being too friendly and too friendly with everybody, makes it a bit hard to be objective in making these decisions. So yes, you can be friends with the people that you lead, but there is a line that you cannot cross, otherwise you can't be objective. And the welfare of the company has to come first, and you've got to be able to make those objective, hard decisions, and hard, for the welfare of the company.
It's a really good point, Ed. If you don't mind me touching that one a little bit more, especially in that initial growth phase, when you get your first couple of staff on and the first staff are coming in. I think I even struggled with this myself when I first took on my own staff, making sure that they were, feeling like they were part of the business, and making sure that they stayed and that they were happy. And then I think thought process is, if I am overly friendly and do becomes friends with them, they will be more likely to stay, which is just not the case, is it? You do have to plant that line.
Yes, you just got to have that line, because often if you don't lead, the wrong people will take you down the wrong path. And I can very quickly use an example. And for those who are listening, if you're an owner, that the message is obviously clear, but from a client manager point of view, a senior client manager point of view, it also applies, because you're managing your staff, and there is this line, and you have to make hard decisions. Just very quickly, I had this particular client manager who was very close to his staff, and unfortunately he wasn't able to make those kind of hard decisions, because they were very friendly. Their families knew each other, and so he couldn't make the decisions that was required. And typically what happened was, there was two staff, and they were both very good friends with him, and they couldn't do the work. So this particular person would say, well, leave it on my desk, I'll finish it off for you. And before you know it, this particular client manager had a ton of work to do, and the two people that were supposed to be doing the work was just sitting around not doing anything. And this poor old guy was just struggling, and because he couldn't make the decision to move them on. Now, long story short, he left, and we had another manager come in to take his place. After the first week, she said, these guys aren't producing, and she moved them on. And then she replaced them with two others of her own. And she went from handling about 300 grand in fees to today about 900 grand in fees, because she was able to blockage down the bottom, and she was able to do that. She was able to make those hard, tough decisions by not being too close, objective about, it's got to be productivity first.
That makes total sense.